What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Mind of Marsal podcast. This is episode number 139. I am your host, Armando Marsal. You can find all of my work over at fantasyguru.com. Follow me on the Twitter or X machine, whatever you call it nowadays, at Armando underscore Marsal, as well as on Instagram threads and TikTok at Mind of Marsal. Before jumping into it, I just want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in. Remember, if you're enjoying the podcast and you're enjoying the show, please make sure you follow, rate, review the podcast wherever it is you're consuming it. It has been a while since you guys heard me. I took a little hiatus, been a couple of weeks off, but we are back on the saddle. Football is a 365 day sport here, and I got a special guest. We're going to be talking some takeaways from the last season. We're going to talk, some players who met and failed expectations, as well as look at a quick look at the free agency. He is a friend of the podcast. He's been a mentor of mine for many years. He's actually one of the first persons that gave me a true legitimate opportunity in the industry. I am forever grateful for him. He's a friend of mine. He is one of the best in the industry, but he's also an exceptional human being. Bob Harris, how's it going, my man?
Well, I think we could end it right there. That's perfectly fine, right? I think we've hit all the high spots. I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on. Always appreciate the conversations. And you're right, man. The NFL has created this perfect 365-day a year reality show. There are tent poles along the way that carry us along. We've got the scouting combine coming up. I love the scouting combine because it is, for me, the press conferences with the coaches and GMs in attendance over a 2 day span. Is the most truth you're likely to hear from those people all year. They will say things that, like, the rest of the year, you'll go, well, where was that guy? But it helps you set that, start setting your baseline of information, right? There's some expectations set. We're going to find out about players who have procedures that we previously didn't know had procedures. And we can start like, oh, well, is he going to match the timeline outlined here? And all those things that we do. And then we'll get through the combine. The underwear Olympics will be delightful. We'll enjoy it immensely. We'll get into the free agent signing period. We're right in the middle of it. We're waiting for tags. There's some players who could get tagged by I think it's a March 3rd is the deadline,
So.
or is it sooner than that? For the franchise tag, and there's some candidates there, but nobody's been tagged yet. But free agency will then start the tampering period the 9th of March, the signing period the 11th. And I expect it'll go pretty quickly. There's a good high end of the class, and then it drops off quickly at the position. So it'll be interesting there. Then we get into the draft, pre-draft hype, the draft, mini camps, OTAs, all the stuff that take you right up to training camp. We'll get that little hole in the schedule. I think they've got it narrowed down to about 2 weeks at the end of June right now is about how it works. First week of July, training camps every year are getting earlier, right? I mean, teams just start cranking up earlier. So it's never a dull moment for us in the NFL, following the NFL.
No, I got people ask me, oh, now you get a little break. I'm like, nah, it's like a 2 week window where kind of things are a little slow or whatnot. But then, like you mentioned, this everything starts piling up. You were right. It is March 3rd, the deadline there. I looked it up. So yeah, I agree. Like I say this all the time, Bob, and you mentioned in the combine, like that's the first piece of every puzzle, right? Like this is where you begin to build your puzzle
Yep.
for your decision making in the draft. Like that's how I look at it. And if you hear my podcast, if you heard me before, I talk a lot about that, Bob. And yeah, I'm looking forward to. We got a lot of stuff that we're going to start covering now too. You mentioned the draft, you mentioned free agency. This is all stuff that you and I and everyone in this industry really like dives into here. So there's really no off period in the NFL. It's a sport that really never sleeps, Bob. Right after this, so what do you got going on right now? Like I know you got a lot of content stuff, and what do you got going on right now there at Football Guys?
You can go there every week. My fantasy notebook is out. That'll be weekly throughout the course of the alter season or off season, however you like to term it. We have our rookie draft guide is out. The initial version one is free of charge. Just go to footballguys.com/rookie guide. You can sign up. Just need an email address. You get that free. It's a really nice new redesign this year, easily navigable. Tons of great information as always. So you'll find that now. And of course, we'll start cranking up our media shows, our podcasts, and YouTube channels will start cranking up. We too have been taking a little bit of a breather to you try to sort things out and make a plan going forward. But the daily emails that you normally get football guys go down to twice a week. Sigmund Bloom covers one on Thursday, the news of the week. My notebook goes out on Monday, so you can get that free of charge. And then as soon as the draft's over, that goes back to every day. So It's not a big window.
Nope, it's not. What do you mentioned it, we get a little break. Do you do it like once the Super Bowl's over? Like, is there anything I start 75 hard every single year? Like I do a little thing to kind of cleanse. Do you do anything to take your mind off the sport? Any extra things?
I'll try to plot a vacation at some point, and I haven't done it yet. Usually, it's like I try to land it right between the end of free agency or the slowing down of free agency and the draft. So we'll see how that plays out. I haven't quite got there yet, but we get the hiatus from the radio. So many of the listeners have heard me on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio, the Football Diaries program with Mike Dempsey. We'll be off until draft coverage. We'll do our usual draft coverage, then be back to daily in July this year, as always. And so it's kind of nice to, not have some obligation every single day, but still some obligations every single day. There's still work to be done and a lot of more behind the scenes stuff. But I love the content we have at Football Guys. You'll find tons of stuff up there going along. Our projections, initial 2026 projections, rankings available now. So go check it all out.
Yep, definitely do that. All right, Bob, let's dive right into it. Let's talk about, the 2025 season. I think it was a wild one. I think there was a lot, we're going to talk surprises, we're going to talk letdowns, we're going to talk all that here today. But overall thoughts, general thoughts on the season, how it went down. I felt like there was a lot of injuries this year, notable players going down. Obviously, it was I think one of the wildest seasons I've seen in recent years. Give me your thoughts on it and kind of, your takeaways from it.
Yeah, volatile. It was a volatile year. I mean, the week to week predictability that we love as fantasy investors, didn't go as deep as we'd like it to, right? And so there were situations where it was hard. And part of that is always going to be injuries. We know that. We know they're coming. You build your team to deal with them. You have reserves for that reason, but this year, sorting through the reserves was a little more difficult due to that volatility. The outcomes of games was super volatile. Like, there was some surprising outcomes every single week that were hard to, just things you didn't calculate. And that's all part and parcel of the game. Look, we have only so much control, right? We build our roster. We field the best starting lineup based on logic, information on hand at the time. But once the whistle blows and the ball's kicked off and starts bouncing funny ways, as it's designed to do, there's no telling what's going to happen. And your control is like a NASCAR driver in a wreck. You're just a passenger, right? You're not doing anything. You're not throwing passes. You're not calling plays. You're not wrapping ankles. You have zero control. So you've just kind of got to, do the best you can, work through the tough parts. That's, to me, just the joy of the game is kind of trying to sort through all these things, not overreact after the fact. I think that's a big deal. Especially in times of increasing volatility. Just remember, the NFL. This is a feature, not a bug, right? This is the desired outcome. Unknowable outcomes every week. I mean, if they had their druthers, there would be upsets every week, every game, and the parity they've fought so hard for is a real thing. So we'll see if some teams. I think one of the cool things is teams are able to come back, like turn it around quickly, right? We saw the Patriots obviously would be a great example of this. But I think it seems to me, Armando, that if you figure out a couple things, if you figure out your head coach and your quarterback, your odds of turning things around are phenomenal, right? They just increase exponentially. I think having a good GM is part of that. Having a coach and GM on the same page who have found their quarterback, that is the cheat code to success in the NFL right now. And you're going to see a lot of teams like trying to pair young, bright coaches with quarterbacks. And it was interesting. My colleague Sigmund Bloom said something the other week that, the AFC, develops quarterbacks, the NFC builds teams. I think you can make that argument, but I think the argument is just because there's more high-end quarterbacks in the AFC. And when you have that guy, that's what you build around. And if you don't have that guy, you have to come up with other means, right? And we saw that, I think, in the Super Bowl play out exactly. The Seahawks built the team more than they built around their quarterback. That doesn't mean you're not paying top dollar for a quarterback, because everybody is, no matter what. But, obviously Drake May is a guy that the Patriots feel like they have their guy. They're going to build their team around him. And it makes more sense with a guy on a rookie contract. You can do that. And then when the deals start coming and the extensions start coming, then it gets a little trickier for a period of time. So they hit Patrick Mahomes level or Tom Brady level, where they're just restructuring every year to give you the most flexibility. But I think that's the crux of it, man. Watching quarterbacks, watching coaches. That's probably to me why the coaching carousel spun harder this year than it normally does. Got what? We got not just 10 new head coaches, 21 new offensive coordinators.
Yes.
Not all of them call plays, but some of those head coaches do, and I think that's another trend you're going to probably see more of, at least on with teams that are offensive minded. Their head coach is going to be the play caller, and they're going to try and leverage that. And lots of McVay, Shanahan, tree members making
Yes.
that climb.
Well, we saw it in Jacksonville, right? Like they had been trying to find a coach for Trevor Lawrence, since he's in the
Exactly
NFL.
that.
And finally, they finally found their guy, the guy who did great in Tampa, and now he went and became the head coach. And look at the year that Trevor Lawrence had. Like, so sometimes it just takes that where you have your piece, you have the quarterback, but you just got to find the right coach that's going to coach him up. And I think that was, I mean, a perfect example of how important that these young quarterbacks with the right coach, how that works out.
I think the GM comes into play there too. James
Yes.
Glasgow came in and did some innovative things. We'll see how the Travis Hunter thing works out. But look, our receivers weren't catching the football. What do they do in the middle of the season? They traded for Jacoby Myers. James Gladstone said it when he traded for him. His superpower is catching the football. And part of that was, and Trevor Lawrence talked about it, is he knew Jacoby Myers was going to be where he's supposed to be. His off target rate went down by like 2% when he threw to Myers because Meyer is a reliable asset who knows where he's going to be. Parker Washington emerged, and Brian Thomas Jr. was a bit of a disappointment. We'll see what his future holds. But you look at Trevor Lawrence over the final 4 weeks of the season was a league-winning asset. He was weeks 15 and 16. He probably won many people or sealed many people's fates that were left out because they didn't have him. So so I think that's a prime example. We've seen Laura struggle, and with good reason. I mean, there's been Urban Meyer changing offenses, supporting cast, injuries to him. It's been a struggle, and now all the pieces appear to be in place, and we kind of got that glimpse of what they drafted him to be in 2021. And is it a huge surprise? Like, yeah, I guess the question is Baker Mayfield make coaches, or do coaches make Baker Mayfield? I think Baker Mayfield has a pretty strong argument. Had his career highs across the board in 2024 with Cohen. Prior to that, it was Dave Canales, who had success with other quarterbacks, going back to his time in Seattle with Geno Smith as the quarterbacks coach, but through also going through Tampa Bay. And getting the most out of Baker Mayfield. I think Mayfield has been a bit of a coach maker, but I think it's worked out reasonably well for both those teams. I mean, the Panthers haven't quite got where they need to be, and the Jaguars are still, have moved much quicker. But I think both of them are headed in a better direction.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. I honestly couldn't agree more. It's just we talk about this every year, like how much coaching impacts teams and players. I mean, Vrabel's a phenomenal coach, and in his first year in New England, like he took the team to the Super Bowl. I get that everyone talks about the easy schedule and whatnot. Like they beat some tough defenses in the postseason. I know the offenses they played against may have not been the best, but those were some tough defenses that they went through. I think Vrabel did a phenomenal job there. So I couldn't agree more. And as far as the season, I'm in lockstep with you. Like I think the perfect, if you're trying to sum it up in one word, it's volatile. Like that's what the season was. It was a high variance season. And that's part of fantasy football. You're
Yeah,
going to have these kind of seasons. That's the fun part of it. You mentioned you have to embrace the volatility. I always talk about that. Embrace the variance, embrace the volatility, because football is a volatile sport. Like it's a high variance sport. Like we're so much of fantasy scoring comes from touchdowns, and that's the most unpredictable thing that there is in football.
right.
Um,
So Trevor Lawrence, we're talking about him, 38, franchise high, 38 touchdowns, 29 passing, 9 on the ground. I mean, there's the likelihood for regression, or the door to regression is right there, and he could easily step through that. Other quarterbacks have been more consistent. Josh Allen, the touchdown variance hasn't been there for him. The regression doesn't happen, so we'll have to see. But those are the things that that's what opens the door to the variance, these high touchdown seasons.
Correct. Correct. We've seen that so many times back, and in so many positions, not just the quarterback position. You see it with the running back. Like look, James Cook is a perfect example. Although he didn't regress, but I thought there was going to be regression based on his previous season in the touchdown department. That was not there. So that it's a perfect example. It is a volatile stat, but again, some of these players are consistent with it on a year-to-year basis. There are outlier seasons, but there are some that are consistent. Bob, every year there's players that disappoint, and then, based on expectations and don't meet expectations based on where they were drafted, ADP, all that stuff. Let's talk about a few players from the 2025 season that just let us down or maybe didn't live up to expectations here. Um, I think for me, the one guy that truly stands out is Justin Jefferson, right? Like
Sure.
he was being drafted as top three wide receiver
Yep.
for most drafts. And just absolutely had a letdown season here. Obviously the quarterback play wasn't good in Minnesota. It just was a really bad season for the Vikings offensively there. Um, your takeaways from him, like what are your thoughts there? And then my question, I guess, follow-up question is, do you think it's going to impact his ADP in 2026?
Early drafts that I've been in so far suggest not too much. Jeff Mans in the first serious host draft took Jefferson at the end of the first round, at the 1-2 turn. So he's picking 12th, and I mean, it will obviously have an impact. People draft it. I don't know if it's going to have enough impact. I had given Justin Jefferson a quarterback proof card. We saw it a couple of years ago when Kirk Cousins was hurt. He was wide receiver 3 over a 5-game stretch with, playing with nobodies, Jaron Hall and Josh Dobbs and Nick Mullins, I mean, it was a horrible bunch, and he still was putting it together. This has taken a step in the wrong direction. So we're taking that quarterback proof card, we're putting a McCarthy exemption on it, and as long as, and we'll see, Kevin O'Connell has said that they're going to have a competition at quarterback. Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah lost his job because because they watched Sam Darnold. Remember, they let Daniel Jones go too, and if you watch him in Indianapolis, he did a phenomenal job running that offense. So the decision there for McCarthy, who you could argue coming off the knee issue wasn't ready to just jump right into the starting lineup. They maybe should have done something different. From every Jefferson investor's perspective, yes, they should have done something different. Jefferson himself said after the season, yeah, it would have been better if Sam Darnold had stuck around. Well, obviously, it would have been for him. He's a great player. I'm eager to take discounts in most cases. I think there's enough high-end receiving talent in the drafts as the ones I've taken part in, that if I don't get Justin Jefferson, I'm probably going to be okay. And I'm probably not going to be feeling like I'm getting enough of a discount, not knowing what the quarterback situation is. Look, talent is great, and his abilities are unquestioned. But man, the production wasn't there. I don't know if I want to. I don't know if I want to invest that early pick in a guy on the hope that he's going to rebound. Maybe I just sit out a year and I look at some other players in his same range.
Yeah, it's difficult, right? Like I'm pretty sure he was sitting there looking at Jackson Smith and Jigba saying, "Man, I could have had a season like that this year if Sam Darnold was under center." But yeah, look, I'm going to take the discount as well. I was on with Justin Fensterman a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about this, and I think maybe what late first, early second is the most he's going to fall, like you mentioned. I don't see him falling beyond that. I wouldn't mind taking him in the beginning of the second round, but I do have some concerns, like the quarterback play, and this is coming from someone who was pretty optimistic about JJ McCarthy going into last season. Like I'm a big believer in O'Connell. I think he's done phenomenal jobs with quarterbacks. And
I agree.
JJ McCarthy just looked completely lost next year, and we can't forget, like he missed the entire rookie season. I don't think he was ready. It was pretty clear. He also battled injuries. But there is definitely concerns because if he doesn't take that step forward, it was pretty bad because it's not like the volume wasn't there. The volume was there
Volume
for
was there. Targets
141
were there.
targets, 30% target share. Like it was there. It was just not good
And
looks.
I mean, and the numbers were horrible. I mean, it wasn't
Yes.
just, I mean, it wasn't like he's a wide receiver too. No, he wasn't even, but I think down the stretch, it was single digit scoring for him. Right. I mean, that's just, so when I look at the landscape and the wide receivers who are going around him, I mean, everyone going ahead of him makes perfect sense to me. Some of the guys going after him in that first serious draft were Malik Neighbors, Chris Olave, Drake London, Nico Collins, George Pickens, Rashee Rice, AJ Brown, all those guys. Like AJ Brown, it looked like he was heading for a disappointing season. He ended up, delivering on his ADP, unlike, the guy who went like one pick after him, Lad McConkey, who delivered next to nothing. So, I mean, that's a lot of guys. So if I'm thinking I can get one of those guys cheaper than I can get Justin Jefferson, I might let somebody else be the hero here, and realizing that someone else might end up being a hero, that Justin Jefferson's super good and that history says he's going to be a top 5 wide receiver. I probably feel better with a little better discount.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and just to kind of point out what you said, like from week 12 on, Bob, he scored double digits just twice.
Yeah.
Like double digit in PPR scoring just twice. So down the stretch when fantasy managers needed him most, he was missing, right? Like he was missing. I think it was obviously a costly season there. So I agree with you. And AJ Brown, talk about you mentioned earlier, don't panic, don't overreact. Like talk about that. Like incredible. Everyone, cutting AJ Brown. Should we trade AJ Brown? It's like, guys, if you were really paying attention, the volume was actually there. The production was not, right? Like it was not. And then you just continue, like trust the opportunities. They're there.
So I wasn't advocating drafting Brown. I wasn't big on drafting Brown. I mean, I did have shares of him, but at that middle of the second round price, I think it was about wide receiver 11, which is about where he ended up. But my concern was passing volume for that team, which has been like, how many times did Jalen Hurts throw 30 passes the year before? It wasn't a lot. And it started out rough this year until they figured out they couldn't run the ball. And then the volume was fine. The production was sufficient for our needs, maybe not the Eagles' needs, obviously not AJ Brown's needs. He would have liked more. I don't think he's going anywhere. A lot of talk about trades and whatnot. And I don't know if Howie Roseman's going to get a deal that gets him going. I think we can all love to see AJ Brown in a different offense with different players. New England comes to mind. Yes. Buffalo comes to mind. I mean, there are plenty of teams that have needs at wide receiver. And we'll see how that plays out. But I do think that it was pretty easy to get caught up in our concerns early in the season, because my concerns were totally based on the passing volume. That offense just didn't have it year before. And guess why? Because Saquon Barkley was a dominant force and they didn't need it. So they were happy to ride that. This year they couldn't ride that, or it didn't work out as well. Offensive line issues, whatever you want to say. Like watching Barkley, it didn't look to me like he noticeably was slower or he looked worse. It just didn't look like it was working. So I'm fine with Brown. I think he's going at a reasonable price. I think he'll be perfectly fine. New offense coming in that will look different from the last offense, and we'll see how that goes as well. So not against that, but I am thinking that this will be a year that if people are taking Justin Jefferson at the tail end of the first round or early in the second, I'm probably going to miss out on him. There are different paths to success for me when I see those picks happening.
Bob, anyone else you have there as far as who do you got that you maybe had high expectations or just regular expectations, but just did not meet them for you?
Well, I think Lamar Jackson. I mean, he was hurt a lot, but he still averaged 16 points, 16.8 points per game. That's not enough. That was, that's quarterback 2, low end quarterback 2 production, and he just didn't look good. There was a period. He started out fine, but then it just didn't work right. Do I think everything is going to get cured with Declan Doyle as his new play caller? I don't know. Doyle's already, putting the screws to him about getting out to OTA, something that has not been the offseason program, has not been Lamar's lane, even though it costs him $750,000 a year to sit out on that. He'll be okay. He's still going to make $100 million on this contract, so don't worry about his workout bonus. But I am concerned. Like there comes a point. Mike Dempsey and I talked about this, a fair amount. My co-host on Sirius, and there does come a point where this kind of quarterback, they can kind of fall off a cliff, and again, I don't want to use the hot take phrases like a running back, but because he's not a running back, he's obviously a great quarterback. People don't clip this. But there comes a point where does that high end athleticism kind of, diminish to the point where he becomes just a standard drop back passer, which I think he can fare fine at, but does that make him the same high end draft pick that we viewed him as? I think there's going to be a lot of questions about him going forward. I was disappointed in some of the guys that I thought would have better seasons. That I thought Bryce Young would take a better step forward, and some weeks he did, and many weeks he did not. Totally inconsistent. So would like to see more out of him. I think that's Lamar Jackson is the king quarterback. Saquon Barkley is obviously a guy, you drafted in the top 3 picks, ended up with a running back 15 kind of output. That's not going to work. A guy that I was super disappointed in was Alvin Kamara, who, you know, vanished at the end of the year due to injury, but also he wasn't very good. Wasn't very good before that. And like a lot of it had to do, he wasn't getting the targets in that Kellen Moore offense, right? That was always been something that carried him over the course of time. So I hope he's enjoying Cancun and he remains there and we figure something else out in New Orleans this year. We talked about the wide receivers. Jefferson's obviously the highlight there, but Ladd McConkey, a guy I mentioned, it was interesting. I was reading JJ Zach Reason had some numbers out, just saying, hey, maybe we're seeing a little bit of a decline in slot receiving, right? In the roles of slot receivers with more tight end heavy sets and things like that. And so I don't know that was the limiting factor of McCarthy. There was a lot of problems there, all tied to the offensive line injuries. Once Joe Alt went down in week 9, that passing attack couldn't do anything. I mean, just, kudos to Justin Herbert for keeping it together as well as he did. Amazing performance by him. And he's a guy maybe that I'll be looking to reap some discounts on that poor performance, because I think there was very little of it was due to Justin Herbert, and I like the new offensive coordinator. I don't know if that'll convince me to draft Ladd McConkey. It's going to take a pretty steep discount on him. But guys like Rome Odunze, Brian Thomas Jr., I mentioned, both, fell short. I mean, Odunze was like so hit or miss. And for a guy that came out, like, it seems like that 3-man class 2 years ago, the Harrison, Odunze, Neighbors, like Neighbors, I'm sure would have been fine, but also the injury stopped him. It's been a rough start for those guys. And Odunze's 2025 season was a struggle. Tight end, I mean, like we all had such high hopes for Evan Ingram, the Joker, when the Joker was on us, right?
Yeah.
there was
The joke was on us.
That role never materialized. But there are other guys. Pat Fryermuth, we were told, was going to be the heartbeat of the Pittsburgh offense. And against Cincinnati, he was, just like every tight end is against Cincinnati, right? But for the most part, it was a horrible mix. So there were plenty of disappointments. But I think for the most part, the high-end guys deliver, your first couple rounds delivered reasonable return on investment. Some of them outperformed. I mean, McCaffrey was rising up the ranks as we got closer to the season, and people were gaining confidence in his health. And again, that's something, the lessons I take away from every season, or the thing I'm reminded of every season, is draft roles. I mean, if there are players with these certain roles, Puka Nacua, that role is not going to change in that Sean McVay offense. No matter how much Kyle Shanahan says he should use Christian McCaffrey less, he cannot. He cannot. It's just like when when I know I should not eat so much cake and someone puts a cake in front of me and I eat the cake. I know I shouldn't, but I do because it's great. The same with Shanahan and McCaffrey, man. He cannot put the fork down. And so I mean, those roles are pretty dominant, roles. And I think those are be the things we're looking at. I think Jahmyr Gibbs has room to increase his role. Bijan does if Tyler Algier moves on to free agency. I'm expecting David Montgomery not to be back, but also Drew Petzing coming in as offensive coordinator. I mean, looking what they did in Arizona, running backs were super successful in his offense. So hoping for more of that. So Jackson Smith and Jigba's role is not going to diminish at all. Jamar Chase's role is not going to diminish at all. Amon-Ra St. Brown's role is not going to diminish at all. Jonathan Taylor's role is locked in. Even if he falls short some weeks, the role is there. Devon Achane, we've got a lot of changes there. We'll see. They say they want to be a more physical team. I think he was plenty physical. They say they want to be a more physical team, but John Eric Sullivan, the new GM, said, identified Achane as a building block. So we'll see. Maybe he's physical enough for him. But those are the kind of players where I'm looking for that just totally locked in roles. And I think there's some guys that have risen up. But, like Drake London, I think if Michael Penix is the quarterback, we're going to feel pretty comfortable with. But I've got my eye on Chris Olave this year in that regard. I think he's just a guy that we saw finally emerge with Tyler Shuck. And maybe this is another case where the quarterback and the coach and some of the pieces are falling into place. And we'll see what Tyler Shuck does this year. But I like Chris Olave an awful lot too.
He was able to stay healthy. That's the big thing,
Yep.
right? Like he was finally able to stay healthy. And I think he produced what we expected him to produce from a healthy season. to go back to what you said about Lamar Jackson. So I couldn't agree more, right? As far as I think once he got injured and he came back, he was never the same. So you look at, especially as a runner, you look at the rushing yards in the first 4 weeks, he topped 45 rushing yards in two of the first four games of the season. From week 9 to week 18, he never topped 43 rushing yards. He only topped 40 rushing yards just once. So obviously was not running as much, and that cut into his fantasy production there, Bob. So a lot of good calls there. One guy that for me, I had high expectations for this season and just really didn't live up to them is Kenneth Walker. He's someone that I thought was going to be able to run wild there. And we just saw a full-blown committee, right? And yes, look, when you look at the overall numbers, right? He finished RB 22, okay? He was going, in round 4, sometimes in round 5, you were getting him. So for me, I don't think he, underperformed basis ADP, but the production on a week-to-week basis, Bob, was very volatile, right? Like if you
Yeah.
were counting him on a weekly basis, he was not delivering. And it was just for me, a disappointing season. You look at the numbers here, and he topped, 15 fantasy points in just 5 games, or yeah, just 5 games, single digit fantasy points in over a handful of games. So like it was either hit or miss. And for me, I thought he was going to be far more consistent. I had him, in the top 15 on my board. So he definitely failed to meet expectations. And we kind of saw it, right? Like towards the playoffs, once he got that full role, he is capable of producing those numbers. But the problem is he never got that opportunity throughout the season. They would use Zach Charbonnet a lot. It was a full-blown 50-50. Even in the red zone, it was 50-50. It was not like,
And
okay, well, at
Charbonnet
least
got the luck, right? It
good,
seemed to have
correct,
the better touchdown luck. I
correct.
talked to people like, you go back to last February when Clint Kubiak was hired. All he talked about was Ken Walker. We've got to put the ball in the hands of our best player. That's Kenneth Walker. He said it wide open. We saw what he did with Alvin Kamara the year before in New Orleans with that wide zone scheme. There was some talk that, Walker's ideally suited for that. There's also, once we got into it a little bit, he had some problems that like his patience is great, and we saw that in the Super Bowl in particular. But there are times when that you just need to read and react quickly and make the linebacker make a decision and maybe he didn't always do that. But his problem was was availability. I think that he scared them off by not being available during training camp for every practice, and they were giving him 2 or 3 days a week off, and they decided, hey, if we want to keep him and have him down the stretch, we need to keep, we need to monitor his workload, and that's what happened. So yes, that was a huge disappointment.
Yeah, and I think that's a very big part of what happened there, right? Like the preseason stuff where he was not available and he kind of fell behind. And maybe he fell behind. We don't know. And maybe Zach Charbonnet that kind of moved ahead. Like he impressed the coaching
Both,
staff.
right?
Exactly, a combination of both. And I definitely think it impacted his role. But I think it's very very clear that if he's given that opportunity, obviously free agent now, but if he was given that opportunity, sky was the limit for Kenneth Walker there. Um,
Was
an-
we saw
another
it in the Super Bowl?
Yes,
We saw the
exactly.
sky,
The playoffs, once
right?
Zach Charbonnet went down, that's it. It was no turning
Yep,
back. Um, Breece Hall is another running back for me, man. I had
for sure.
him very high on my board. To
I did
me,
not.
no, I did. I did. I had him very high. I had a lot of exposure. He's someone that was the kind of that RB 13 to RB 16 ranges where he was being drafted. He finished RB 19th, right? So not terrible when you're looking at ADP. But again, I had him inside my top 10 last year. And you look at the production, it was just so volatile. He has 2 games of 20 plus fantasy points, another 2 games of 19 plus fantasy points, and then 2 more games of 16 plus, and then you have 5, 9, 5, 7, 8, 4, 5, 8. It was just a roller coaster of a ride with Breece Hall. And in his credit, it's not really all his fault. I think the coaching staff was an issue there. I think the way they were utilizing was an issue, and I also think that the Jets that team just imploded. It was just awful, right? And they were playing from behind often, never really put in a position where Breece Hall was able to run the football on a consistent basis. So a letdown season, another one that's going to become a free agent here this year. So for me, I think when I look at the talent, you mentioned it earlier with Justin Jefferson. For me, I kind of feel the same with Breece Hall. When I look at the talent and I look at what he's capable of doing, I view him as a top 5 talent at his
Sure,
position in the NFL. But
we've
you have
seen
to,
it.
You correct. You have to establish the role, right? That you mentioned. I think that's a key part. The role wasn't there for him to be that kind of player, and it just was for me a disappointing season for Breece Hall, unfortunately.
Yeah, he would look a lot better in a Kansas City offense or
Yes.
somewhere right, where there's a Trudy. I mean, there are a number of backs who would fit into that. Travis Etienne probably is another one. I think that we'll see where it goes, but I'm with you. 100% agree on Breece Hall. There's only one piece of that Jets offense that's worthwhile to me, and that's Garrett Wilson, just because of the volume he draws, and I think that that role seems to be fairly quarterback proof, and so I'll be investing in that, and I think you'll get a great discount on that this year,
Yeah.
by the way. So watch for that. But yeah, I'm not gonna. I think Hall's interest in Hall is going to depend on where he lands, and we'll see if the Jets end up talk this week or they may franchise him. They're likely to. I know Rich Cimini from ESPN had been reporting since late last year that the Jets view him as a foundational piece and that they intended to keep him. I've seen other people think that they won't. So well, this one's truly up in the air. My guess is that they do want to keep him, and so that would not be the ideal outcome.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it would not. It would not. If he goes to the Chiefs, his ADP is going to skyrocket, by the way. Like
Yes,
everyone's going to want to get on that train,
right.
like every single person. I would be one of those two. I would overpay it too. I really would. Because they do need a running back like him, in my opinion. I think that will take that offense to the next level. One more guy, TJ Hawkinson. He just like for me, he was someone I was kind of gravitating towards when I wasn't taking one of the top tight ends. He was going late in drafts. Someone who has been a top, 10, top five tight end several years out of his career. But this offense it was not good, Bob. It was not good. He disappointed. He finished tight end 26. It was a really bad year for Hawkinson for me. So he's someone that let me down. Did you have any expectation for him this season?
I didn't have a whole lot of investment in him, no. So it wasn't like the single digit scoring didn't seem like outside the realm of possibility. So I dialed back on him. I think there are a lot of young tight ends who came through, and some of the older tight ends that we've been counting on. I just didn't get the job done, whether roles or injuries, whatever limited them. But Hawkinson, it seemed more like the offense in general was a limiting factor. Maybe I'll be like I feel like he's a guy who's going to fall off the draft radar for a lot of people. So he's probably someone you'll be able to pick up as a free agent next year if he has a big game or something. I think that's what people will be watching for.
Yeah, I might be best ball. Like
Yeah,
that's my
for sure,
second or
best ball.
third tight end. Like kind of maybe that's what I'm doing. I don't know if I want to go right back to that well in season long. I agree with you. I think he's someone that might be in free agency and you might be able to pick him up after a good week. By the way, everyone, excuse my voice. I'm battling a cold. I know I sound congested. I paused a couple times to cough. You're not hearing the coughs because I mute myself there. But Bob, let's talk about some surprise players of the year of this season. I'll tell you one that for me, I was happy to see it, but I was also sad that it was one of the first seasons that I had just said, you know what, I'm out, and that's Javonte Williams. He's
Yep.
someone I've been investing in. I mean, pretty much since he's joined the NFL. I've been a big fan of his. I even have a rookie card signed and everything. I bought it on eBay. That's how much of a fan I am of Javonte Williams. Really never paid out or panned out in Denver, but man, did he take this backfield in Dallas by storm? And he had an incredible season. He finished RB 12, that pretty high considering where he was going and the expectations there. First season of over 1,000 rushing yards for him. Had double-digit rushing touchdowns, 11. Just overall best season of his career. Bob, were you surprised by that? By the
Yes.
Williams performance this
Yeah,
year?
yeah, yeah. I think we were all somewhat surprised. I think there was a group of running backs that we were all looking at about the same time, right? It was the Jaguars guys and it was the Cowboys guys, right around 8, 9, 10. And you can kind of take your pick. And I think at various times I took Williams. At various times I took like I had shares of Tank Bigsby, Bashal Tootin, Jaden Blue, who
Yes.
ended up being a total flop. All those guys, in best ball were, probably dispersed throughout my rosters. And obviously those with Javonte Williams panned out the best, right? So yeah, he was a huge surprise. He was my top pick at for this category when we are talking before the show. I'll go with another one at running back though, Kenneth Gainwell. Like there was a guy who was like the fourth Pittsburgh Steeler running back drafted, right? It was
Yes.
like Cordero
Yes.
Patterson, by the way, was one of the ones drafted ahead of him last year. So expectations were super low. Whatever you got out of him was phenomenal. He ended up running back 16 ahead of Jalen Warren. We'll see what he does in free agency. Someone's going to pay him some money to go somewhere. I don't know that he'll have a similar role, and I don't know if the offense he's in Pittsburgh is going to afford him a similar role if he stayed there. So he may be a one-hit wonder, but he was a guy that came out of nowhere. And whether it's due to injuries or whatever the issues are, whether it's Caleb Johnson just winding up in the doghouse early on and not get it done. But I mean, you could say the same for Kamani Vidal. Probably has earned himself some cachet going forward. He probably delivered some great totals for people with Amari and Hampton out. And I was super dismissive of Kamani Vidal, pretty much universally heading up to the point where he had a role. Guess what? You get a role, good things happen.
Yep. I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. He was someone that I kind of dismissed as well. And when he had the opportunities, he took full advantage of them. He produced, he gave some big weeks for fantasy managers.
Rico Dowdle did too. Rico Dowdle put up the monster weeks, and he could not sustain it though. And we'll see what happens to him if he earns a bunch of money. I think he's going to want more money than maybe teams are going to want to pay him though. So we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, I think so too. I agree. And talk about roles. Like he went from Dallas, right? Where he had a solidified role, produced Javonte Williams, carved out a solidified role. Whoever is that man next year in Dallas is going to carve out that role.
Correct.
So keep that in mind. So keep a very close eye on who ends up in Dallas because you're talking about a lot of opportunities here in this backfield. Jaden Blue was a complete disappointment. It's funny, Bob. I actually was drafting. And I had the backfield, the Dallas backfield open, and I clicked draft Javonte Williams. My intention was to draft Jaden Blue. Talk about working out in my favor there, Bob. It worked out significantly in my favor there. I'll tell you this: I've always been a fan of Trevor Lawrence. I've been huge on and this was the 1 year where I wasn't investing in him as my QB1. Right, he was a guy that I recommended as a QB2 in Superflex. I did like the idea of that. In that aspect, it worked out for sure. But he exceeded expectations. All right. He exceeded expectations by a wide margin. I was happy to see it because I always thought that potential was there. I always believed that potential was there. The
Jaguars did too, by the way. They drafted him overall, right? He was a generational talent. And I agree. I just thought this was the perfect convergence of scheme, supporting cast. There was a point last year, Mike DeRocco wrote about this at ESPN. It was like week 10 where where Liam Cohen thought he was being a little conservative, thought Lawrence was being a little conservative, told him to just let it rip and start throwing more. The numbers leapt exponentially, and down the stretch, he was one of the top fantasy quarterbacks in all of football from weeks 10 through 18. He was dominant, right? So yeah, and especially in the weeks when it mattered most, weeks 15 and 16, he put up monster scores. Schedule helps that. He's going to have a tougher schedule this year. So is Drake May. I mean, we'll see. We'll see how that works out for those guys. But yeah, I thought Trevor Lawrence was phenomenal. I mean, we should not overlook what Matthew Stafford did either. I mean, he was a 25th quarterback in ADP last year. Finished his quarterback 2 on the season. Monster touchdown totals and so we'll see. If you're betting who's more likely to carry it over the next year, Stafford or Lawrence, I mean, that's a tough call.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and Stafford looks like he has plenty left in the tank. It does not look like it was just okay this year and he's done. No, he has plenty left in the tank. It's funny because I was very bullish on both Adams and Nakua.
Me too.
And I liked Stafford where he was going. So I was taking him as a QB2. But again, like you said, I did not expect that kind of season from him. That's not what I was expecting. A couple of receivers, Bob. Like we talked about Olave already. Like he exceeded expectations. For me, obviously very good season from him. There was concerns for me about durability and whether he could stay healthy or not, and the concussion, history that he had. That to me is very concerning. It was very concerning. Stay healthy. George Pickens. I was a big fan of George Pickens going to Dallas, right? And I was taking a ton of shares of him in best ball, and I absolutely. But there was no way I thought he was going to be a top 5 receiver in PPR score. That's just not what I was thinking, right? So for me, exceeded expectations. Great season. Someone who's going to go out there and be a free agent now. Interesting. We'll see what happens there. And then
he's supposed to get the tag. We'll see. It sounds like they will probably tag him. That's a lot of money. I mean, you tag George Pickens, you've got $140 million tied up in three pieces of that offense when you have like one of the worst defenses in the league. We'll
Correct.
see how that works out. Not that we're complaining. We like that. Go Cincinnati, keep struggling. Go Dallas, keep
Yes.
struggling.
There's nothing more. There's nothing more we like than that, really. Like, just keep on chucking the ball. So yeah, I agree. And then another guy where I always viewed as a top 36, top 40 wide receiver, like kind of a floor play. But this year he flashed his ceiling so many more times than he did in years past, and that's Wan'Dale Robinson. And
Yep.
look, I get it; they had no one else to throw the football to, but we cannot discredit what he did. Over 1,000
No.
receiving yards, 92 catches, over 90 catches now in back-to-back seasons. Okay. So like, and he, just been a floor guy. And this year, averaging what, 13.6. I know
Yep.
it's not a lot, but he had some pretty big performance and was a stable producer each and every week. I thought it was surprising. I had shares of him in best ball, but no way did I think top 15, Bob. Did you?
No, absolutely not. And I'm like, I know he will be a free agent, and there will be teams looking at him. I'm hearing the Washington Commanders will be, like you got Terry McLaurin, you need that other piece.
Yes.
He'd be an ideal fit there for a team that's trying to get Jaden Daniels back on track with David Blau as the new offensive coordinator. So yeah, I totally agree with you. And another guy that people are going to have interesting. Well, there's a few guys. I mean, people are going to have interesting conversations about, and one of them is going to be Michael Wilson. We don't know what the quarterback situation is going to be in Arizona. That's there are way too many moving pieces here to be sure. But like, if you don't think Michael Wilson is right now a better all around player than Marvin Harrison Jr., I don't know which games you're watching. He just is right now. So we'll see. That's not to say Marvin Harrison Jr. doesn't have the potential, but he needs to work on some things. As my friend Matt Waldman would say, the clap attacking must stop. Right? He's got to catch the football. And maybe they'll start trying to force the targets more to him. But in an offense, when you have Trey McBride drawing the kind of workload he does, and again, new coach coming in, Mike LaFleur will call a different offense. But I mean, those are some really good pieces, and I don't know what the right price is for Michael Wilson right now. Would you rather have him than Marvin Harrison Jr.? I might right now. And maybe if we find out that, that might be a real easy answer. If we find out Jacoby Brissett's going to be a bridge quarterback there, they move on from Kyler Murray, but that's, none of that is etched in stone at this point. Maybe Murray moving on, but who's going to be the bridge quarterback? Maybe not etched in stone. So we'll see. We got to remember, as great as Jacoby Brissett was for us, and Michael Wilson and Trey McBride, I mean, he was quarterback one every single game he played. The Cardinals were what? Well, all but one, I think. But the Cardinals were 1-11 in those games. So I'm not sure they're like all on board with that. So yeah, there was a lot of interesting guys that emerged last year. Quentin Johnston finally got going. Parker Washington finally got going. Like clearly Liam Cohen thinks he deserves a role. We'll see. I mean, they got a lot of mouths to feed now. Offense
Yes,
now.
they
I think,
do.
Jacoby Myers just got a $60 million extension after they traded for him. We'll see what happens with Brian Thomas. And it sounds like Travis Hunter is going to play a lot more defense this year, just based on their needs on that side of the ball. So, but he is still available. So we'll see what happens, man. Can Emeka Buka get back on track, after his blistering start last year that just totally fell off? Did that more coincide with maybe Baker Mayfield's health? I mean, he got pretty beat up and his numbers dropped drastically, but it was coincidental with Ibuka's dropped
Yes.
drastically. So was it the what came first, the chicken or the egg? I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with that right there. One tight end for me, Jawan Johnson, he was surprising. Like top 10. I mean, we always knew, at least we always thought that the potential was there, right? Like he was a high upside play, but never really a consistent floor, and that changed a lot this season.
Yeah.
So for me, that was a surprise. That he was a top 10 and he was consistent. Those were the two things
Right.
that surprised me the most out of
In
him.
an
Not
offense that didn't have a lot of, like let's face it, Devon Belay and Kevin Austin. I mean, we came to the point where there weren't a ton of options, but he was a solid, consistent producer throughout. I'm totally with you there. I love Harold Fannin. I think
yes.
we're all, I think Colson Loveland's going to be that guy that's going to be the number 3 tight end off the board. It's when he goes that'll be interesting to me. I often wait for that third guy. I think in the most recent draft I was in, he went in the 4th round. Um, Okay. I mean, I probably would have taken him there because I knew in that room I wasn't good. He would have got past me with a couple picks before me. But man, Harold Fannin is a great fallback to me. David Njoku has already said he won't be back in Cleveland. Todd Monken has had some success over the course of his career with offenses and tight ends. I think Harold Fannin Jr. is a unique piece who's, maybe the best offensive weapon they have in Cleveland. I know that's a low bar, but he's pretty good and very versatile, kind of chess piece kind of guy. So I think that's a player who shouldn't be overlooked.
No, I agree 100% with you. And I think with a young quarterback under center there this upcoming season, he's going to benefit from that. We tend to see that they lean on these tight ends early in their careers. So agree with that right there. All right, let's wrap it up, Bob, with a couple of free agency and then maybe it's some free agents, top free agents here, and then where you like them to go. Assuming they don't get tagged, some of these guys might get tagged, some of them might not, but Breece Hall, we talked a little bit about him. I would absolutely love to see him go to a team like Kansas City. Like, this is a team that needs a running back. He is a versatile running back that's going to be able to just do everything and every down back. I think in the Andy Reid offense, he's going to flourish. Like we've seen, Kareem Hunt in his peak and things like that, where, Pacheco before the injury was playing pretty good. So for me, this might be the most versatile back they would get in this offense. It would take it to a next level.
Here, ETN. I mean, I think you could make an argument for Travis Etienne there. I think Kenneth Walker III obviously going to go to the Raiders where he'll share time with Jetty.
Yes.
Yes.
Like, where he does, I know, but where he's going to go in full blow, he's going to go somewhere where there's a nice committee, right?
Maybe Denver. No, my guess is Seattle works to keep him and gets him, a lot, instead maybe not franchise. They're not going to franchise tag him, I don't think, but maybe give him an opportunity to make give him a longer term commitment that makes him more cap friendly. Javonte Williams, I think maybe ends up back in Dallas. I think after that, maybe J.K. Dobbins ends up back in there. I think everyone else is kind of outlier players. The Tyler Algier tier. I mean, maybe he can fare really well if he gets a better role. I just don't know if he'll find that role anywhere. We'll see what there's teams out there that are going to be interesting. I think for the running back position, Houston may be a team to watch. I mean, it seems like Joe Mixon's time is up. I don't know if Woody Marks was the answer, the real answer there. They might want to do something. So there'll be some openings here for players and maybe some opportunities. But I think the top of the heap, Hall, I think he ends up staying with the Jets. Walker, I think, ends up staying with the Seahawks. ETN, maybe Kansas City. Williams ends up staying in place too, unless unless somebody comes up with a bunch of money. Guys like Rico Dowdle, those are just wild card plays.
Yep. How about the quarterback? This is Daniel Jones, Malik Willis. Any of these guys you think they're going to be moving, Bob? Like,
no. Well, yes, yeah,
Malik Willis.
Half of them.
I think,
yeah. So Daniel Jones is going to stay in Indy. They've already. So Stephen Holder's been reporting on this that they have resolved that he will be healthy soon enough, and they love what he did with the offense last year. And it sounds like they're going to be ready to move on from Anthony Richardson. My dynasty Superflex shares will be very happy to see him get a new opportunity somewhere. But Daniel Jones is going to be the guy. Malik Willis, Miami makes the most sense to me, but it sounds like Arizona will be in the running there as well. That's a possibility. LaFleur, his brother has been coaching him, so that there's a connection there. But honestly, the whole Green Bay contingent that moved to Miami, the Hafley and Sullivan, GM and head coach, clearly familiar with what Malik Willis can do. He's put up phenomenal numbers when given brief opportunities. He's going to make a lot of money, maybe more than he should, but we'll see. We'll see how that ends up playing out. So I think those guys, Aaron Rodgers, I think if he plays, will end up back in Pittsburgh, although there's been a little talk with him, Arizona connection with the LaFleur brothers. So we'll see. Nathaniel Hackett, now the offensive coordinator there, Aaron Rodgers' best friend. So that might be something to watch. But Arizona is going to be a key domino. I mean, we'll see. I mean, I think we're all pretty sure that Kyler Murray's going to be gone. It's when and how. Same with Tua in Miami. I mean, it sounds like the Dolphins would be willing to just eat that 99 million if they have to.
I think
So
so. I think
yeah,
so.
and just get it off the books, like make 2026 a total rebuild year, then have nothing on
Correct.
the books for 2027. Look, the salary cap went up to $300 million plus, and it'll go up more next year. So yeah, so that's those guys for sure. Wide receiver George Pickens is the top of the heap. Sounds like the Cowboys will keep him. My favorite player in this free agent class is Alec Pierce, the Indianapolis wide receiver. Someone's going to pay him a lot of money, whether it's the Colts or somebody else. He's a much more well-rounded receiver than people give him credit for. He's kind of viewed as a one-trick pony, a speed threat. Last year we saw it though. He's a well-rounded route runner who can work all portions of the field, and he's been capable of being a much better player. Catches everything they throw his way too. Wan'Dale Robinson is going to make some money, whether it's with the Giants or not. Juwan Jennings. Like I probably like Juwan Jennings more than anyone in the world. I'd like more than anything else for him to stay in San Francisco. As good of a player he is there, I wonder if he's not a product of that scheme as much as anything. And so I'd love to see him stay there. He and Kyle Shanahan don't always
Yes.
see eye to eye, so I don't know if that's going to be the case. Rashid Shaheed will stay in place.
Yes.
Mike Evans, like there's a wild card. Could you see him in Buffalo? Could you see him somewhere? I mean, I think that's a place with like a legit shot at a Super Bowl every year. I could see maybe that happening. After that, like I don't have a lot of optimism for Tyreek Hill, landing in a place. Kansas City, makes the most sense just because
Yeah.
they know him, and so we'll see. But outside of those guys, I think that's I don't think there's going to be a ton of movement there. Pearson, Robinson are the two that I think will make the biggest splashes in the class.
Yeah, I think Pierce. You talk about Robinson making a splash. I think Pierce in New York makes a lot of sense. The
He
Giants,
does.
like, to alongside Malik Neighbors, that makes so much
Well,
sense.
I mean, Pierce could fit a lot of places like that, though. I
Yes,
mean, Tennessee has a need for a true wide receiver one. Buffalo, New England, there are a lot of teams with a need. The Raiders. I was on a
yes,
show in Las Vegas this week where they were asking me all about Alec Pearson, so and the Raiders have a ton of money, well, like the third most cap space. So yeah, and we'll see. We'll see. But he's gonna I think Bill Barnwell at ESPN suggested he's going to be a $30 million receiver. We'll see. I mean, 28 though doesn't seem like like would it be a huge surprise? No.
no, no. And Mike Evans to New England. I'm saying that's
New
where I
England
think.
or Buffalo?
Yeah, it's an AFC East team. Mike Evans
Yeah.
ends up in the AFC East, and it's not going to be Miami nor New York.
Tight ends, Kyle Pitts, gonna
Well,
stay.
I think he stays, right?
I think he
Like,
stays too.
there's no way like you're with him and then he blows up and then you say, all right, get out of here. No way. No, he
Travis
stays.
Kelce,
It's
if
either
he comes back,
if he doesn't retire, he's back in Kansas City. He's not going
he's
anywhere.
not going to make $17 million though.
No, 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 no. No,
Dallas
he won't.
Goddard,
That's a good one. You think he stays?
I don't think so. I don't think he does. I think they'll move on from him. And I think David Njoku's already said he'll be
Yeah.
out and about. He's been very good, at times in the right scheme. He could maybe get something done. We'll see where he ends up. He's one I'll be watching.
Yeah, I think so too. Him and Goddard are the two I think would be impactful elsewhere, Bob. Anyone else?
Oh, Romeo Dobbs, I think probably have overlooked him. I mean,
I think he's a better receiver than people give him credit for.
I think he's been a victim of the whack-a-mole, offense
Yes.
or passing attack. Well, it's great. You go for the open guy, but I mean, they're maybe get him in the right scheme where they're scheming up for him. He could do some good. I agree with you. I think he's probably better than we've seen.
Yep. All right, that wraps it up there, Bob. I always appreciate your time. You know that. You and I, we get out here, we talk some football.
Way back.
Every now and then I go on to Sirius XM, you come here and the hot seat, all that stuff that you got going on. Before we jump off, why don't you let everyone know what you got cooking? I know you already kind of briefly talked about that, but where they can follow you, all of your good stuff, and all that good stuff there, Bob.
You can get me at Football Diehard on the X device and on the Blue Ski. So post all my work on both those sites and find me Football Guys all year long. My rankings will be up shortly, but our initial rankings projections are all up for redraft and dynasty as well. The rookie draft guide's available now. Free version 1, got a ton of good information, rundowns, uh, comparisons, all the comps that people love, scheme fits, everything you need to know pre-combine, and then we'll have an updated version coming out after combine. But go grab this one for free right now. Just go to footballguys.com/rookie guide and check it out. Otherwise, you'll see me on various podcasts. I'll probably crank up the hot seat here at some point on the Football Guys Live YouTube channel. But mostly I'll wait until this summer and start ravaging. You'll wish you had not seen so much of me.
That is not true.
Once the season starts, it's hard to avoid me.
Ladies and gentlemen, you should be following all his work. It's great stuff. One of the hardest workers in the industry, without like question, and all around great guy. Bob, always a pleasure having you on the podcast, man. Always a blast talking football with you. Really, really appreciate your time. I know you are a busy man, so I am very grateful for that right there. You can find all of my work at fantasyguru.com. You can follow me on the Twitter machine at Armando _ Marsal, as well as Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Mind of Marsal. Remember, if you're enjoying the podcast, enjoying the show, make sure you follow, rate, review, and like the podcast wherever it is you're consuming it. Thank you very much for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed this week's journey through the Mind of Marsal. Until next time.